Hi, everybody. This is Chuck once again. Welcome back. I'm glad you decided to join us for another video. So what I'd like to do today is to continue with the idea and the themes that we've been talking about in the last three videos. To talk a little bit more about the idea of the self. Who is that self? We're used to the self being the physical us that we've been walking around with for whatever number of years that we've been around. Of course, what we've been talking about here is the idea that you're much more than that. We said that you are the soul. We've used the terms the deeper us, the inner us. It doesn't matter what it is we talk about as far as language is concerned, just as long as we understand an idea that there's more to us than what we've considered ourselves to be for quite some time now. And of course, the advantage to that is that that inner us has got at its disposal pretty much an unlimited amount of information, knowledge, and wisdom. And when we reestablish the connection that we have, actually become refamiliar with the connection that's always been there with that inner us, what happens then is that we become and are able then to access that information, to bring it forward into this portion of our life, and in doing that, help to make our life more satisfying and more fulfilling, nicer, more pleasant for us to live, right? So, of course, that's not going to mean that we're not going to have some challenges still. And that's something that we'll talk about a little bit today. The nature of challenges, where they flow from. And there's one idea that I'll share with you guys. It's kind of a big idea about where challenges come from that you might find a little bit surprising. So that's one of the things that we'll add today. We talked in some of the earlier videos that we did about how it is that our experience comes about. And we talked about the grouping together, the flow of things like our emotions, our feeling tones, our thoughts, our imaginations, our beliefs, the part that certain other aspects of that inner us, the soul, play, and utilizing all of those perspectives to then create the experience that we're having. That part of us we term the ego. Okay. So one of the things that we talked about when we were discussing beliefs and how you can have your experiences in line with whatever beliefs you're actively utilizing at any particular time was this idea of self-worth. So, of course, there's many beliefs that we can use either on their own or in combination, maybe in a layered approach as a belief system to then influence the type of experience that we have in what we consider to be reality. And this concept of worthlessness is only one of them. There's many, many things that we can do. So we talked about a scenario where maybe that would have come into play. So one of the things I'd like to add to that at this time is that one of the things that pretty much everybody does as you move from being a very young individual to the age that you presently are right now is, of course, we interact with people all the time. And many of those people have a great deal of importance to us. And so in that, sometimes what happens is we have to alter the way in which we express ourselves depending on the type of interactions we would like to have with those individuals. That occurs usually in response to the types of interactions we have had with those people, especially the ones that are of a challenging nature, where we've had interactions with those individuals that we're not really fond of. Okay. We create strategies, maybe I'll call them at this particular time, of how we express ourselves with individuals to attempt to have the types of interactions with individuals that we would like to have. Now, these strategies that we've developed are layered with various beliefs, okay? Layered with beliefs about how, if we express ourselves in particular ways, we will then get the types of interactions from people that we desire. So this can be a complicated thing because it's got lots of facets that are part of it. It can even be that we would, and I'm going to say it like this to start with, we would prefer that people view us as less than worthy because we believe through experiences that we've had that the result of them seeing us like that will bring about a response from them and an interaction between the two of us that is a nicer interaction than what we may have experienced if they saw us differently. In other words, there's a potential that there could have been scenarios that might have occurred when you were younger that if you were expressing yourself in the natural way that everybody has of expressing themselves, in other words, naturally, we are always connected to that inner us. We express ourselves from that place, and because of that, we have a lot of creativity, right? We have a lot of ability. If in the past someplace, in expressing your natural abilities, you did not have a good interaction with somebody else, anybody that you would have considered to be important in your life, maybe an authority figure, but somebody who was important. Could have been an older brother or sister, could have been your mother, your father, a teacher, it could have been anybody, a friend, doesn't really make any difference. If you expressed yourself in a way that was, let's see, we'll just call it creative in some way, and this individual felt less than as a result of that, and they responded to you, and of course, not because of you they felt less than, but because of some things that they were holding, belief systems that they had going on within themselves. But of course, it's difficult for you to know that from your position, okay? So that's something to be aware of. But anyway, so you expressed yourself in your natural creativity, and out of their challenging way of seeing themselves, they then express themselves back to you in a way that you did not like, okay? It might have been verbal, it could have been physical, whatever, okay? At that moment, you then think about expressing yourself a little bit differently because you want a different type of interaction out of those individuals, right? So this takes many forms and many shapes throughout your life. There's many different scenarios with many different individuals, okay? So what I want to convey to you here is that through your life, as you have lived and had interactions with various individuals, depending on the nature of the struggle those individuals have had going on in their lives, you will, as you express yourself in the ways that you've expressed yourself, have various types of interactions with them. Now, what I don't want to make it seem like at this moment is that the struggles that you had in your life had to do with only the people that are outside of you. In other words, it's all about them. Because really, you challenge yourself with those individuals for your own reasons. So really, it's about you and it shows up through them, okay? Many times there's challenging situations that you want to offer yourself that you want to maybe recognize initially that are not true. Maybe you fall into the strategy building scenario that we talked about just a little while ago. And then some point a little bit further down the line, you realize you don't need to do that. You again become familiar with the truth of who you are and you express that. There's all sorts of different permutations about why you would put yourself in particular situations. To have a particular type of experience, to rediscover yourself and so many other things. Okay, so there's a variety of things that are going on within you, a variety of situations that you have with other individuals that can then lend to the types of challenging experiences that you're having in your life right now. Okay. Now, the bottom line here, of course, is what we've been talking about in the previous 3 videos, and that is all of that, of course, is valid and that it's happening. But in understanding that you are larger than the experiences that you're having right now, and you have then at your disposal tools, information to move you beyond those, you can have different types of experiences in your life. Okay. So one of the things that I talked about a little earlier in this particular video was the reasons why we have challenges. And I just touched on that a little bit, but let's talk about it a little bit more fuller way. Okay, so of course we have challenges as a result of the beliefs that we have, right? Certain of those beliefs, of course. And so when we're in certain scenarios with certain individuals, it can be women, it can be guys, it can be people in the business world, it can be many, many venues, of course. The beliefs that we're carrying around can lend to a particular type of outcome in those situations. Because of course, what we've discussed is that that aspect of the larger self that we call the ego is always paying attention to the beliefs, the thoughts, the feelings, the imaginative state that are all happening usually consecutively as we are in any particular type of a scenario, as our perception is bringing information to us. Okay, we'll phrase it like that for the moment. And so then we have, in response to that, a world that is being displayed around us, and we'll say at the submolecular level. I'll just add that at this particular moment. And of course, you're not going to catch it. You're not going to see it developing. It's just going to be there as far as you're concerned. So all those things are going on. And so our challenges, in one degree, flow from the beliefs that we hold, all right, that are part of these strategies that we developed as we've grown from being very young to the age that we are right now. But there's a bigger picture that we have to understand challenges within also. And this bigger picture is that at some point, especially at this time period, in other words, we're in 2020 right now, and you may have heard, you may be familiar with some language that this type of understanding is coming more to the surface in people during this time than what has happened for, in terms of linear time, a long time now. All right, so in that, becoming familiar with those deeper layers of who we are has an importance now. So the challenges that you're running across in your life are really opportunities to move beyond the belief systems and the thoughts and the feeling tones and the emotions and the way that our imagination then works in regard to all of that, to move beyond those into a larger understanding of ourselves. And through that, to utilize different beliefs, to utilize our imagination in a different way, to utilize our thoughts and our feelings in a different way, okay? To get the ego then involved in our life in a way that produces a different outcome for us. All right, so that's what we're up to right now. That's what our challenges really are all about. Our challenges are about seeing the limitations that we have, understanding that those limitations don't have to stay there, having an idea, a growing understanding that we are more than the physical us, reconnecting with that understanding, gaining from the understanding the knowledge and the wisdom that's there in that reconnection, and applying that to what we're doing so that we can move into a different experience of our life, which is really what this video series is all about. It's all about that. It's all about us talking about who we really are and why. Why talk about that? What difference is it going to make? It's really going to make a big difference, a bigger difference all the time. Okay, so this is the idea, right? The idea that we're more than what we thought we were. The idea that in understanding that and becoming more and more familiar with that, we're going to have a different type of life. And of course, the stuff that we've talked about already, dreams, dream time, dream recall, some of the exercises, the practices that I shared with you guys, things that I'll share in the future, all these things are meant to help us move more deeply into a more expanded understanding of the true nature of who we are, and then utilizing it in our life. All right. So when we were talking about dreams and dream times, one of the things that I talked about is it can be utilized as a communication method between us and that deeper self of us. Okay. So what I want to do right now is I want to talk about what I like to call the eyes of the inner self. And when I say the eyes of the inner self, I'm not necessarily talking about the eyes that you see with. I'm more talking about the eyes like the letter I. Okay. And when I say that, what we're going to talk about is the ways in which the inner you, the soul, likes to preferentially convey information to you, the way that it would like to express itself to you, the ways that it uses to get information through to you. Now, what we're used to doing is looking at things logically, rationally, and intellectually. And that works to a certain degree and in certain venues. But what I'm going to suggest to you is that those ideas and concepts, those ways of working with our world rest on this other stuff that we're about to talk about, the eyes of the self. Okay, and what are those eyes of the self? They are, some of them anyway, intuition, impressions, impulses, insight, imagination, and inspiration. So a lot of people will say that these fall along the lines of feeling states. And feelings many times can be associated with these, but they don't always have to be associated with these. Okay, so sometimes feelings can be there to help you to recognize some of these communications as they're going on between you and the deeper part of yourself, that deeper you. Okay, so some individuals are very natural at using these. Some individuals use different names for these. People use these things a lot of times and term them in a particular way. Like you may hear somebody say, my gut tells me that I should do this. Well, they're of course talking about their intuition, or that they got an impression, or they maybe have some insight about something. Okay. So these eyes of the self, as I said just a little while ago, are the preferred way that the self likes to bring us information that is beyond what the rational, logical, intellectual us is used to looking at for information. It's beyond that source. Okay. Now it happens in everybody's life. And what we want to do, of course, is to learn to pay attention to it to a much greater degree. Because, of course, the source, which is that inner us, is the place where all that information lies. And so as we learn to pay attention to this way of information coming into our life, we then open up the channels of communication between this expression of us and that larger expression of us, so that it's easier for us to get information that's helpful for us in whatever moment it is that we're having a particular challenge. Or even if we're not having a challenge, to continue a nice experience that we're having, because of course all that's important too. And so intuition, impressions, impulses, right? So maybe you're sitting in your living room, you're reading a book some evening, we'll just say it's summer, and all of a sudden you have an impulse to go into your garage. All right? You don't know why. There's really, maybe at this time, there's no information other than that just popped in your head. You just have this impulse, you need to go into your garage. Well, okay, you get this idea that pops in, go into the garage. So, okay, put the book down. You don't know why. So you go into the garage, right? You walk out the back door, you walk down the steps, you walk across the yard, and you open the door to the garage, and you find that somebody left the light on in the garage. Okay? Not a huge thing, but, you're going to burn a few more bucks in electricity up, if that light is left on overnight in the garage. Okay, so you found that, you turned it off, and you go back and you read, right? Could have been something bigger. Maybe somebody, maybe one of your younger children, filled the lawnmower up with gas. And in doing that, they were a little careless, filled it too full, and gas spilled out of the lawnmower onto the floor. And there's a puddle of gas on the floor now. And you have a guy who's right outside your garage door doing some welding for you. All right. He's putting something together for your backyard, whatever it may happen to be. Maybe he's making a repair. Anyway, welding means sparks. Okay. And sparks and that gasoline that's inside the garage are not going to work well together. All right. So you walk into the garage, open the door, turn the light on. Hopefully there's no spark when that happens, of course, right? And you see this pool of gas, and you go around the garage and you told this guy, hang on a second, we need to take care of a problem here. Okay. So it can be anything, right? So you had an impulse, right? You followed the impulse and something happened. Now, impulses always flow from the inner you. Impulses will, in some way, shape, or form, bring you some benefit. It may be that there's a challenge initially, but at the end, as it develops, there'll be a benefit, or it may be benefit right away, right? So all of these eyes of the self are like that. The self, as it conveys information to you, always conveys information that's going to be beneficial for you. There may be some instances where there's going to be some sort of a challenge involved, but as you move through the challenge, the benefit will show itself. Okay, if you're being observant, of course. All right. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about is that. Right. So something else that I want to discuss with you guys today is the concept of the soul, the you. And at this point, maybe we'll also bring in a concept of something that people use various words for. We could say God, we could say all that is, we could say the Tao, there's Vishnu, there's Krishna, there's whatever, the great mystery. Depending on the spiritual path that you follow, there's many names for an ultimate awareness, some personality, I guess we'll call it, that has an ultimate ability. So one of the attributes that's associated with that idea is that it's infinite. All right. There are no borders around it. All right. Now, what we can see sometimes, though, is that lots of times there's the idea of this expression does have a border around it. It's a circumscribed thing. All right. It's a circumscribed expression. All right. Our ideas of God they can come in a package. They can come with walls. Our ideas of spirit can do the same thing, right? Whatever word we want to use. But the concept of infinite means that it's always expanding. All right. That's one of the things that is a foundational quality, I guess I'll say, of us in that state, is that we're always expanding. We're always exploring what it is to be more of what we are. We're always becoming more. All right. And that theme holds true in all of the expressions that we have, including this expression. So we talked about challenges and we talked about beliefs as part of why we have challenges. But we said there was a bigger picture. And so what that bigger picture is about this idea, this concept of always becoming more. Now, more doesn't mean better. More just means more. All right. The you that you've always been has always been valid. It's not going to be one is better and one is worse. And maybe one is funner to experience, right, than the other one is. It can certainly be that there's less challenges, but it's not better in a ultimate way of seeing things. You, however, can be more, all right? You can always be more because that's what you as the soul, in whatever shape and form we're talking about, is always about, being more. And so that's what our challenges are about. Our challenges are about, we have this limitation that we believe that we have that could be part of one of these strategies, or could be another belief that we have that's just there that we haven't even recognized yet, right? And beliefs aren't bad either. Beliefs are there to give us a particular experience in this particular environment, I guess I'll call it, okay, in physical reality. We'll say physical reality at this moment. So, because we're always like the infinite us, looking to become more, it's challenges many times that give us the opportunity to do that. We become familiar with some sort of a boundary we put there for ourselves, and then we grow beyond it. We become more. And if you think of this particular theme, this is something that we've done really all our lives. We start in kindergarten, we go into first, then we go into second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and so forth. We become more, right? Our school experience expands, all right? With relationships that we have with either the same sex or different sex, or however it is that we do it, as we get older, as we become more experienced, those relationships become different. They become more. We add more to those relationships. Many times in our job, if we're allowing our creativity to be there, right? If we don't have challenges there, our job becomes more, right? It's a theme that really, if you look, you see a plant when it's planted in the ground, it's a seed. It starts to become more, right? A stem comes up, the leaves comes up, it grows, there's fruit, it spreads itself around with the seeds, with the pollen, with whatever. More happens, it becomes more. It's a theme that's prevalent through everything that we do. This is what your challenges are about. Your challenges are about, this is someplace that you don't think you can go beyond, but you can. You have the ability to go beyond that, whatever it might happen to be, all right? So there's your challenge. Now, the thing is that we have the tendency to want to utilize the logical, rational, intellectual aspects of ourselves to try to move beyond our challenges, all right? We can have some success doing that, but remember we said that even those things really rest on this foundation of the eyes of the self. If instead you just relax a little bit, you remind yourself that there is this larger you that has all this knowledge and wisdom, all this experience out there that it can bring into your experience and help you move in an effective way beyond these roadblocks that you put up from yourself, beyond the beliefs that you're holding into different belief systems. You'll find that it works almost always so much easier than it does if you use just the rational, logical, intellectual aspects of yourself to do that. Now that takes practice, of course. And of course, that's one of our themes here, right? Is practice, right? You have to. Why? Because right now we're relatively unfamiliar with all this stuff still. So we have to refamiliarize ourselves with channels of information that are really natural to who it is that we are. But we're not used to them. We're not familiar with them right now. And so we have to refamiliarize ourselves with them. So you have to start to pay attention to intuition. You have to start to pay attention to impulses, to impressions that you get, to insights that you have about things, to when you feel inspired by something, okay? The imagination. We've talked about the imagination before. The imagination is a very important part of this creativity process that goes on all the time. Because again, remember, in one of the earlier videos, I said there is a way that all this comes together, okay? And understanding that mechanism, right? Understanding how, as the deeper you, this aspect of you goes about creating this experience in concert with that deeper you, and other aspects of that deeper you can really be helpful. Having that knowledge has a lot of benefits to it, okay? So understanding challenges and why challenges happen is an important part of your life. And you have to remind yourself of this over and over again. I still remind myself of this on occasion when things come up. Of course, it's much easier than it used to be. And a lot of times the things that used to be challenges, many times, with the things that used to be challenges, they're not challenges any longer. I've moved beyond so many things that used to be challenging for me. You will as well, right? You will see things as challenges that you didn't even think were challenges before, okay? This can apply sometimes with certain metaphysical and spiritual and religious philosophies that we may be associated with at this particular time. You can see that this particular way of looking at spiritual ideas or metaphysical ideas or religious ideas really are holding you back. Okay. Now, again, that in and of itself can be a challenge. Why? You're comfortable with it. You're familiar with it. You know a lot of people that are doing it the same way. You may be close to those individuals. Okay. As you start to change, they may be uncomfortable with you. Okay. Which then means you're going to experience some sort of feeling of uncomfortableness. But that inner you is going to call. It's going to continually try to pull you forward into becoming more of what you are right now, because that's the theme again. All right. So now, of course, as I've experienced, as you move into different ways of seeing who it is that you are, you will then attract those individuals in your life and you will form new friendships. All right. Eventually, what's going to happen, if it already hasn't happened, is that you will have individuals in your life that by and large see this type of journey in their life with much less layers of constraint upon it than what they used to. In other words, it's a freer journey than what it used to be. They allow themselves the freedom to look at various ways of expressing themselves and ideas of who they are that they didn't before. Okay. Usually, as a result of that, they genuinely, that's important, they genuinely feel happier. They genuinely feel more satisfied and more fulfilled. Because certainly we may have had times in our lives or may know people that they attempt to convey that they're satisfied and fulfilled in their lives and they're feeling good about what it is that they're doing or a particular system or aligned with it or whatever. But really you can tell that they're not, especially as you move further down this road. It becomes much easier to connect with the, I guess I'll call it for the sake of our conversation at this particular time, the energy of the individual. And you feel their emotions then, you'll feel their feeling state at that time. You'll get some sense of when they're expressing themselves, what's actually behind that expression. It's not that they don't know it, they just hide it from themselves sometimes. Or you hide it from yourself, of course, sometimes, right? And the whole idea here is to come to an understanding of yourself where little by little by little, you can let go of needing to do that until finally you don't have to do it at all. And at that point, of course, you're going to really enjoy your life. You'll be doing all sorts of stuff. But again, like I mentioned, it doesn't mean that you're not going to have challenge. What you'll do, however, is you'll understand the challenge. Probably in the moment that it pops up, you'll understand why it's there, what it's all about, as well as how to move beyond it. Okay? In our natural state, challenge takes on a little different form. It's just creativity. It's just exploration of ourselves. Okay? We're doing the same thing here. We're creating, we're exploring, but due to the environment that we're doing it in, it's a little bit more, shall we say, constrained. But it doesn't have to be as constrained as what we've made it. Okay? And a lot of people have come to understand that. It may be you, but maybe not. But possibly you're still having quite a few constraints around it. But just take to heart that there are a lot of people out there, a growing number of individuals that have moved beyond a lot of those challenges and constraints. You can do the same thing. Does it take some time? It takes a little time. And it definitely takes, as I've said many times, practice. Now, the visualizations that I talked about before, of course, continue to be important. Exploring dream time is always an important thing. By this time, I'm guessing that pretty much everybody, if you kept it up, are now remembering dreams to some extent. It's important that you keep journaling those things, recording them in some manner, because again, you'll see things that'll happen. You'll recognize things when you go back. As you move forward and you become more familiar with dream time and the information that is there within it, you can go back into what you've journaled and you can see information there. You can see themes there, various other things that you didn't recognize at the time. Excuse me. And that's a benefit, of course, also. So I think that what we're going to do is I'm going to tie it up today. We've added a few more things, um, tied it into some of the things that we've talked about before. Um, if if your life is pretty good as it is, um, this exploration, of course, will just continue to make it that. This exploration, of course, will never stop. It's one of the things that's really nice. You know, we explore the oceans, we explore the globe, we explore the moon, we explore the stars, whatever, and some of those things can seem like that exploration can be going on forever. But this really, truly is an exploration that will never hand an end. It'll be an infinite, and it is an infinite exploration. So there's all sorts of stuff that'll happen and be part of it. If your life is a little more challenging, of course, as you do this, you will move through those challenges in various ways. Um, the information that I'll share with you here can make that easier. Of course, choices have to be made, of course, and sometimes they'll have to be strong choices. Make sure you have support around you, of course, when you make those choices. Take the time to gather that support when you do it. Um, you may have some ideas, some beliefs that are really strong about why maybe you shouldn't make certain choices, even though you feel that it would be good for you to make that choice at a time for yourself. In the past, of course, we talked about you may have to distance yourself, even from people that are close to you in some regards, just because the challenging nature that they're experiencing at the moment makes it very difficult for you to move into a different expression yourself. And so you may have to deal with things like that as well. Um, of course, I don't expect that I will be the only source of information that you have already exposed yourself to or will expose yourself to. In fact, I'll really suggest that you should allow yourself to expose yourself to whatever is out there. That deeper you will bring books into your experience, various people into your experience, maybe movies, other videos, whatever it might happen to be. There'll be all sorts of stuff. And as those themes and as those resources come into your life, of course, there'll be a reason for it. And you can always come here, hear what I have to say, maybe about certain things. As I continue on with the videos, we'll talk about various types of information that are out there. My experiences with those, my ideas about those, certainly in the comments or with the website. You can ask questions about things and you'll get, of course, my experience with them, my opinion on them. And I think it's a fairly decent opinion at this point in time. It doesn't mean it's, however, the only way to do things or to view things. There are many ways to live this life. And really, that is what I'm trying to convey to you, is that there are many ways to live this life. And what I'm hoping to do here is to free you up so that that's in fact what you can do, is to allow the opportunities that can be in your life to show up in your life and then to take advantage of those and to have some fun in your life, right? To let your life be more satisfying, more fulfilling. So it's been great to be with you guys again. Thanks again for dropping by. Hopefully I seemed a little less serious than I did in the last three videos. Of course, I watch myself as I do this, and I recognize that sometimes I come across maybe a little overly serious. There's a depth, of course, to the information, but it should be lighthearted and fun too. And just, of course, an understanding that a lot can be done with it, right? So that's my endeavor, of course, too, to become a little bit more familiar with this medium and in that to convey the information that I want to share with you guys in a little bit more relaxed way. And of course, that'll happen. So once again, thanks for stopping by, and I will see all of you again next time around. Okay.